I'd like to talk about the larger significance of this NPR story about the Supreme Court and masking. I wasn't going to cover the story. I thought it was kind of dumb. But Debbie's like, no, people are talking about it. You should cover it. And I want to do it in a way that draws out what's really going on here. Because you see the essence of fake news. And it started out with Nina Totenberg, the kind of longtime court reporter of NPR, saying the following. She said that according to sources at the court, Sotomayor did not feel safe in proximity to people who were not masked. Nina Totenberg reported that Justice Roberts, understanding that, quote, in some form asked the other justices to mask up. And then, says Totenberg, they all did except Gorsuch, who, as it happens, sits next to Sotomayor on the bench. His continued refusal to do so has meant that Sotomayor has not attended the Justice Weekly Conference in person, joining by telephone. Now, this article was just picked up because it suggested this kind of, wow, even at the Supreme Court, you've got all this insider kerfuffles going on over masking. So right away, CNBC was all over it, MSNBC, CNN. And then, of course, all the pundits began to weigh in. Here's Mehdi Hassan. Why is it that the public figures on the right who claim to be pious Christians and believers in morality and decency turn out to be awful, awful people? So you got the statement and then all the speculations on top of the statement, presuming, of course, the statement to be true. And then Justice Roberts put out a statement basically saying, I never asked the other justices to be masked. Boom. And after that, this is even more unprecedented, there was a statement that came out from Sotomayor and Gorsuch. Sotomayor says, I never asked that Gorsuch be masked. I never made that requirement. And Gorsuch said, I never heard anything of this sort from the Chief Justice. There's never been any such rule. The whole story was made up. The whole story was lies. Now, the killer. Here's Nina Totenberg tweeting, after all this, after 3 statements, think of how unusual it is for 3 justices of the court to come out and directly dispute, all of them, saying the same thing and saying Nina Totenberg's reporting is false. You'd think she'd be like eating crow, right? No. Quote, NPR stands by my reporting. In other words, the 3 justices are liars. Either that, or some analysts have tried to cover her by saying that in her original report, she said that Judge Roberts, quote, in some form asked the justices to make up, as though in some form means he didn't really. He just sort of implied it. And therefore, there's nothing inconsistent with him denying it because she didn't say he explicitly said it. So this is the kind of verbal pyrotechnics that it's what any liar does if a kid is caught, with his hand in the cookie jar. Well, my hand wasn't in the cookie jar. It was only on the cookie jar. It's not in the cookie jar. It's just on the cookie jar. True, there were cookies sticking out of the jar. This is the kind of 3-year-old BS that we're being subjected to. Now, the remarkable thing about all this is no Twitter warnings. Nina Totenberg isn't being banned, even though she's putting out clear misinformation. Somehow misinformation of this sort, Twitter doesn't mind. Social media doesn't mind. They never censor it. They don't fact check it. So this stuff just goes on. And here's an interesting comment by Cernovich at the end of all of it. He goes, the question isn't whether the news is fake. That's already been decided. Clear example right here. He goes, it's whether it was always this fake and we didn't know it then. And that's an interesting question. Was it the case that even in the older days, when there was a kind of simulacrum, a kind of outer patina of objectivity, did you have the same group of fakers? Maybe these guys aren't so unusual. Maybe these guys are just more blatant, more open, and those guys had a little better sense of camouflage. They were con men just as these are con men. The difference is that those con men were able to get away with it. They were like, well, we're not really con men, So the difference, in other words, is one of style, not really of substance. I won't try to answer that question now. I simply think that what's revealing about this NPR lie is their willingness to stand by the lie. And so what you've got here is liars who think that telling the lie, you can hang on to it because after all, the lie is congruent with the ideology, not the truth. And so it's more important to hold on to the lie than to succumb, even if unwillingly, to the truth.